All right, we'll get started. Hopefully more people will come in. But basically this first section, anyway, is just introducing myself a little bit about my background, so you know who I am. And, this is a picture from when I was in 1998. How long? That's a long time ago. All right, with what they call a film camera. I don't know if you guys remember those. That had a timer. Yeah. This is me almost falling off a cliff. I was actually ran around quick. I was going to do one of these cool things. Like it was like the selfie by death. All right. So this is at LVR, Lutheran Valley Retreat, where I currently work when I was on summer staff there. Where my feet were dangling was off the high point right here. So it's about a 200-foot drop. So I like to show that. I haven't gotten any less crazy. So anyway, so I work at Lutheran Valley Retreat. Director there for 18 years. I've been working with men's ministry since then, since I started getting retreats, and we grew to one. When I first came, it was 30 men, and then at its height, it was 250 men. But once we got that size, county, forest, and everybody just said, "Whoa, too big." Not in nice ways, but we've since recovered it back to about 150, and that's our max actually right now. And so. A little bit of my family. These are my 4 boys. On the bottom right there's Sam, my oldest, 18. The one standing up is Joe. He's 14, and then Mason's 16, the one on the left. And the middle one is Bodie, otherwise known as midlife crisis baby. Those of you who've been through your midlife crisis know a motorcycle's better. All right. Cheaper. Way cheaper. I can't say better, can I? That's not good. So that's my boys. Now, I want to, as we move on, this is at Moab, a big sand hill just outside the city. I love Moab, one of our favorite places to go. We're going actually there in about 4 weeks to do the same thing again, to do some more mountain biking, rock climbing. One of the things that I have worked to do is be who I say I am. All right? If I do these things, we do them. All right? So if I say we rock climb, we rock climb. If we hunt, we hunt. If we mountain bike, we mountain bike. We don't go out all the time. We're not always doing these things. I try to get out with my boys once a month. And my wife is down there somewhere on a chair watching us. And Angie's usually along with us. All right, so like I said, mountain biking, that's my son Mason. He's on the mountain bike club in Woodland Park, also swims and track. But that's him in one of his race, and that's a totally cool picture, by the way. So one of my buddies took it. It was fantastic. This is us mountain biking in Moab, Porcupine Rim, if you've ever been up there. It's about a 14-mile downhill. Overall, it's a 24-mile trip from the trailhead to town that we did together last year. This is Bodie on his very first rope climb in 2020. So we do go rock climbing. And again, like I was in the leadership session, I was talking about just training up young men and training up kids. But I'm not perfect. But I do know how to get my kids on a rock. I do know how to get my kids on a mountain bike and teach skills and things like that. So I love them to death. This is fall. This was our fall outing, going rock climbing again, all of us. And my wife doesn't like her picture taken, so she's behind the boys. If you look closely, you can see her toe. But she didn't like a picture taken. This is me. We just hikes with the boys. And then, of course, my son Joe's first deer, not a big one, but his first deer. So again, big deal. Yeah, big deal. Oh, well, the funny story here, because I have an hour and a half, is so Sam, this one, the oldest, 18, also got his first deer this year. He took 4 shots. He thought my sights were off. Joe was 1 shot. 1 shot, 1 kill. And it was so much funny because Sam was like, "Oh, your sights are off. Your gun is way off. It's terrible, Dad." And Joe's like, "I got him in 1 shot." And then it was awesome. So that's the age they are. Love it, death. Every phase. If you have young kids, every phase is a new, fun experience. If you don't have young kids, if they're older, you know that already. So that's my family. Like I said, I try to be who I say I am. And I'm not a fan of selfies. I don't like looking at my pictures, but somebody challenged me a long time ago. If I'm not in the pictures, they need to remember that I was there. And just to say, yeah, I know I was there because I took the picture, but if I'm in the pictures with them, somebody challenged me that a long time ago, and just have pictures with your children even if you don't like to look at yourself. So I don't smile because my teeth are messed up, so I smile, it's my smile. All my 3 older ones in the mountain bike picture also lead climb. So, and I've taught them that. And somebody says, "Aren't you scared?" You know, and I go, "No, I taught them."
Exactly.
All right, and I do that professionally too. I teach rock climbing. I actually teach kids mountain biking, so it's kind of what I do, and I love what I do. So. All right, when we talk men's ministry, there's a lot of things in here that you might be in your head. You're like, I don't know if you're here to learn or say I already know a lot. I don't know. But one of the things I want to eliminate a few things we're not going to talk about, and that's important, is, there's a lot of things about men, like what makes man a man. You could look it up. That's why we're not going to talk about it. All right, what makes a man a man? A good husband, a good father. Woohoo, all right. And then you look at the definition of that. You got to do these 5 practices. And next thing you know, it becomes overwhelming. All right, and I can't even do that. Can't even do half of it myself. Cliches in men's ministry. I'm just going to ask you, what's a cliche you've heard in men's ministry? Oh, I haven't heard very many either. But just anyway.
Can you make up one?
So, can I make up one? I sure can. Yeah, I probably can. It's like, no, I'm not going to. We're not going to spend too much time talking about what happens when men step up. The reason is because there's a lot of information to go through. The quick answer there is when we started getting to men's ministry, when we saw men getting involved in Sunday school hour, we started in more in leadership, more involved, there was an insane change in our church. When all of a sudden I have a couple dudes leading, 3rd grade Sunday school and things like that. And so it is insane, and so it's just challenging men to do that. Worry about the 5 practices men should do at home. Men don't mean. This is my comment. We don't need any more you shoulds. You should be doing this. My mom and dad never did a devotion together, and the only time we prayed together was at the dinner table. Now I understand that some of you do that, and that's good. That's a good practice. And so it's just I always just say, what's the heart behind it? And are we being who we say we are? Are we actually living up to our word, or are we lying to ourselves when we preach? But we're not going to worry about that for now, and we'll get to that. And then there's a lot of other men's ministries out there that say, hey, sign up for this program, do it. You don't need to do that, all right? We don't want to hand over a men's ministry to another men's ministry. What happens is guys like to be committed to something, and what happens when we bring in another ministry, they'll get more committed to that ministry than to your church. And we want them in your church doing your ministry there to lift up the kids, the children, youth, families, and women. Everything in it needs to be stronger. I'm not going to spend a lot of time worried about what guys we're talking to. Does that make sense? All right. Now, demands of time. How many hours do men work? That's a question for you.
A lot.
What's a lot? Too many. All right, what is too many?
60 plus hours.
60 plus hours. Are you thinking of one man or a lot of dudes?
One dude.
One dude? Anybody else? If I have just a 40-hour week myself, I feel like I'm not actually working. Right? And of course that's ministry too. And I know there's women out there that could say that too. How many hours do women work? And a lot. But this is men's ministry today, so a lot. All right? So we'll just go through a couple of these. Business. Pretty typical. A guy I know, J.W. Roth, who's a big businessman in our area. If he's home one night during the week, that's a lot for him. He easily puts in 80 hours a week of work. I mean, granted, he makes a lot more money than I do, but he does a lot. He owns a lot of businesses, but he's not home that much. Politics? Ooh, I would not want to do politics. Anybody here running for office? No. You guys are no fun. Pastors, church workers, how many hours do you work? Come on. Be honest. Too many? I know you're going to say too many. What's too many? 50? 55? 60? Easy?
Like at least 55.
At least 55, right?
The average is 55.
Average.
That's the average. That means
Yeah.
there's guys working 70 all the time.
Easy. So,
And I'm supposed to work 25, and I probably work 40.
Well, yeah. Yeah, if you work part-time, you're full-time in a church. So, already demands of time. Military. We got a lot of military around Colorado Springs, and those guys are insane. I mean, and that's if they're home, but then they have their outings. If they get deployed, it's ridiculous. So basically, that's the bottom line. Now, what we were told about our work life. Can you guys think? What are we told about our work life? The negatives towards work life. What did you think's in this category? See if you can figure out my list.
You need to have
Balance,
balance.
okay. Anybody? All right, well, we'll just jump into it. Negatives towards work life. Hard to have relationships outside of work, right? So basically the work becomes my life. Negatives toward family time, feelings, faith. So that basically meaning that these things are hard with your work life. One other thing about feelings I'll mention with working with men is men are 10 times more emotional than women. We just suck at dealing with it. All right? So what I end up doing is I'll internalize everything and I'll hold it and I become a powder keg. All right? That's just ready to explode. And if you've ever seen a dude explode, it's never pretty. But that's one of the things that builds up over time. We're not good at expressing feelings. We're told to hold them, subdue them, whatever it is. I'm not saying you got to have a big cry session. I'm not saying that. Just be aware of it. Faith is pretty tough beyond going to church on Sunday morning. Now here comes some positives. These aren't, in a sense, they're really negatives. But these are the things we get because of our work life. Effort and more effort. We like to be committed to things. So if work is demanding more of us, you know what the biggest way to motivate me is? Bet you can't do that. Right? That's the biggest way to motivate me, which is probably why I have a bad foot. So I bet you can't run a half marathon. That's actually really how this... Anyway. All right. And I did, but we're not going to talk about that time I had. All right? So I lost the bet. I lost 2 bets, actually, out of this. The more you work, the more you get. You know what's really funny is a friend of mine who owns his own business. It's an upholstery business in Colorado, and he travels all over the place, works on restaurants. He pulls he does the reupholstering, and he's like, yeah, I put in, and he brags about how much work he puts in. And he goes to me, he goes, what, you don't put in like 78 hours a week? I'm like, you know what, you're right, I don't. But when you put in 78 hours a week, you get paid for it. I don't. I put in that much, I don't get any more money. You make more money for your family. He stopped telling me that then. So I should let you know too, I do enjoy humor, I do enjoy laughing. So if I crack a joke at an awkward time, it's just to relieve the tension of the room. Sacrifice, right? Positive towards work life. Man, we're sacrificing something. I like to feel like I'm giving my life to something important. And I get so much affirmation. Hard work, we've heard that, the I can do. This one I actually added recently. We get satisfaction and affirmation from our work. And that is a huge, it seems like it's positive, but it's really negative. Yeah?
If you ask a guy a question, the first thing you talk about is your work.
That's right.
Women talk about relationships.
That's right.
Guys just talk about their work.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
And then when you're retired, you don't know who you are.
That's right.
You lose who you are.
Lose identity.
So it becomes our worth.
Yep. Becomes a worth, identity.
I went to a men's retreat where you were not allowed to ask what a guy does.
Mm.
You didn't have anything to talk about.
Just sat around. It's supposed to be campfire conversations. That's right.
We sat around kind of looking at each other.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. We talk about work. We talk about our worth. And then what the strain then on relationships then is when the spouses are tired of hearing of work. And I don't blame them, but it happens because that's our identity. And that's not great, but anyway. So those are the affirmations to work more. More effort gets more money. Work you get, satisfaction, affirmation. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And then, and so that's just what the guys we're dealing with are. All right. What about demands of Christian life? So this is now we have this huge work week, and now we have our walk in faith, which we know should be important, should be a priority. And so sacrifice, and that's not necessarily a negative or a positive. The problem with sacrifice is Christ quotes Proverbs when he says, learn what this means, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. All right, so sacrifice is not necessarily a good word here. What are we sacrificing when we demand to men? I love the session after churros, by the way. You guys are all like tired. Faith, strengthening our faith, time. So I was trying to pull up a movie quote here for one of the worst movies ever made, Without a Paddle, but in there, nugget of gold, and the gold is you can spend your entire life gaining money and losing money, but you can never gain back an ounce of time. If no one's ever said this to you, I always point out the obvious. Time is the greatest gift we can give because it's the only gift we'll never get back. And I've learned that more as I've gotten older, which, teach me to number my days, I guess, is the psalm. But ultimately, time is the greatest gift we can give someone. And I wish people would understand that. Sorry, I say that because usually when I'm giving somebody my time, it's because they're yelling at me. Relationships. So being in community with people, small groups we might have, just another demand. Prayer, which is, again, these are not bad things, but again, when we're talking prayer, it's another demand. You should be praying, you should be doing this, and yeah, that's absolutely true. But again, we just went through the slide of demands of time, and now we have more demands from this. So how does a guy prioritize these things, other than, I know I should be. Fellowship, more time, rest. Okay, I'm down with that. These are all supposed to be positive things, but unfortunately, in the mind of a dude, unless we have a major intervention on the previous slide, these become challenging. And then the last one, family. One of the, so just so you know, I'm still learning too. I'm learning about men's ministry. I'm learning about things. And so recently I just found out that my program director, Ray, who's been with me for 5 years, is leaving March 10th. All right? And I have a leadership coach, and I meet with once a month. And I was talking to him about it. He's like, well, how are you going to cover it? Tell me what you're going to do. He asked me a bunch of questions. And I go, well, I guess I'll have to pick up some slack till we get someone. And then if we don't get someone, I'll just have to kind of take it over. And he looks dead up right in the eyes to me and says, well, what are you going to give up? Mm-hmm. And I didn't have an answer to him because if I don't come up with an answer, family's what I'm giving up. And I still don't have an answer for him yet, but I told him I'd get back to him next month. So, but that's just it. I have a job that says I need to do all this and this and this, and usually these are the things that we give up. Precious day off is spent in church. Now, I say that because I do agree with getting into church and getting into the Word, being with brothers and sisters in Christ because I need it for encouragement. However, Sunday is a precious day off. And the families are choosing to be in our churches, and that should be a grateful thing. And I know, as men, I've heard it. You should be in church. Absolutely, you should be, and I agree with that. It's just remember that is a precious day off, and usually people saying are the ones that are paid to be there, and that's something. But if a brother of mine who's not paid to be there says, man, I really missed you in church. We'd love to see you. We'd love to see your family. That means a lot more to me. And that it is a community that I want to be a part of. And I'm like I said, I'm camp. I'm not church. And it hit me when I kept hearing from the pastor. And when I went to his office and said, Pastor, but you get paid to be there. That didn't go over well. But that's where I was on that day. And we had a good conversation. So that's what's going on in a dude's life. And so that kind of sets up kind of a framework as we move into the next slides. Any questions or comments about this part? Good. So how do you kill any knock-knock joke? Go ahead, say knock-knock. Hey, come on in, the door's open. All right. Yeah, crack joke. The more you think about it, the funnier it gets. All right. So. Well, I did make and so usually, last time I did that, I followed it up with the knock knock, and you say, who's there? And I say, I eat mop. And then go ahead and finish that sentence. I ate my poo. Yeah, yeah. And then I can't. Then I laugh for 10 minutes. But then we move on. Get you out early, I guess. All right. So the big question, I guess, when you're thinking about men's ministry is who's your men's ministry for? And I'm going to let you marinate on that for just a second, and I'll tell you why I asked that question. Because, give you more time. Because the reason I asked this question, and this is an important one, this actually question got me off the list for a youth ministry. I was being interviewed for youth ministry, and they asked me if I had any questions. I said, yeah, who's your youth ministry for? You know? And that pretty much took my name off the list. Because what I was hearing in the interview, I'm not saying I'm right, just so you know. What I was hearing in the interview is a lot of times we design ministries for people who are already saved, and we want those people to come. And but we have these men on the fringe. We have these men who are taking that step outside of the door, who need to be pushed back in. We have moms who are bringing their families to church without their husbands. We have single guys who don't know their place in the church. We have a pretty big hurting group of men out there. So asking the question, who's it for, is going to dictate how we're going to proceed. So the way I answer it is for men who, if nothing else, they come to this event. All right? And so they might not be coming with their wives, but they know Jesus, but they're on the edge, and that type of stuff. So, all right. Now, one of the things, I don't know if you ever read this book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. He has the 4 P's here: purpose, priorities, performance, and profit. And it's just a good way to organize. There's tons of other organization things. It's a cool book. It actually starts with City Slickers. What's the one thing from Curly? And that hooked me right away. Had to read the rest of the book. And that's what I got out of it, was the 4 P's. And it's pretty good, because what I found is if we have these concepts all over the place and we haven't brought it into the one thing, what's the one thing we're going after? We can be floating all over the place and then have a lot of different things we think will work, but ultimately never do. So, cool. All right. So, sitting down and brainstorming with what people I call the 4-headed beast. This is what I came up with. You don't have to adopt this, but overall general purpose of men's retreat, to raise up men to be biblical leaders they should be. All right? That's.
Quit using that word should. You should all over yourself.
Stop shouldn't we? Raise it up biblical leaders. How's that? We'll just stop there.
That's
all right. Well, the other 3 heads came up with this.
Okay, well, tell the other 3 guys that they gotta go.
Yeah, you shouldn't should all over your place, but
They should quit saying it.
they should quit saying that. Good. Priorities. All right, so when we talk about events, when we talk about where to head from here with men's ministry, this is the list that we brainstorm of as you're doing speaks, as you're doing talks, things to focus on in men's ministry. This is kind of things we came up with. Authenticness, how to be authentic. What that means is, giving a talk on that just means, where am I really at? What am I really struggling with? Who can I be authentic with? Realize it's not going to be everybody. It might be like 2 or 3 other dudes. But who can I really be authentic with? I have 3 guys who know my darkest, deepest stuff. All right, that I talk to with things I'm struggling with. And if every guy had that, and it's kind of that no judgment zone, but pray for, encourage, and occasionally kick you in the butt thing if you need it. And those are my 3 guys. They don't tell me what I want to hear, they tell me what I need to hear. And setting that up for every guy is something to think about. Intentionality. Intentionality with your time. So, man, I try to get to all of my kids' basketball games, and sometimes it's impossible, but they know I'm there. The other thing with intentionality is be an example for your family, and taking that time to speak to. What is this? I have a lump in my chest. I bet that goes on this. All right. Build skills. Priorities, men. You know what? Friends, family, hobbies. Building skills. Parenting. We always said, my wife and I always joked, that when we gave people parenting advice, quote unquote, if their kids were older than ours, we'd always say, well, we're the perfect parents of a 12-year-old because we didn't have one yet, right? But as soon as we had one, we realized we didn't do anything. So, the folks who have been through the phase can help mentor those who are younger. Building skills as a friend. What does it mean to go up to somebody and say, how's your wife? We'll go over there. It's actually a slide later on. But family, father time, those type of things, how to. And if there's one thing they can take away, hobbies are a big thing. And that's actually, hobbies plays into something that I've touched on in the beginning, healthy emotional releases. Guys need healthy emotional releases. So mine are the activities I do with my boys. I do them on my own. And then, so we'll get to that too. Reorganizing priorities. Like we said, when you ask a dude to talk to each other, they just bring up work rather than family first. So it's just reorganize that priority and what's important. How to love your family again, that type of thing. Absolutely. Giving permission to play, and we'll get to that with retreats in a bit, because that's what I do the best. Giving permission to play, okay? Taking life too seriously is a terrible, terrible thing. Life's too short. Being present time, we talked about that already with the faith. Healthy emotional release, touched on that also. I can't reiterate enough, the men are more emotional than any woman I've ever seen. We just are awful at dealing with it. And unfortunately, women get the bad one being so emotional, but they're just dealing with it a lot better. And so you don't have to have a big cry party, but, what does it look like to throw a rock down a hill, Or just, I don't know, go to the weight room, pound some weights out. We had an issue at camp this summer, and we have a little weight room we built in there at camp, and that was my release. I was able to tolerate people a lot better after working out a little bit. So, and then the last one that also got added recently, abiding daily in God's presence. That skill of abiding daily in God's presence is probably one of the biggest keys I can tell you to do. All right, performance, how we do men's ministry. Now, you might have some things you're doing already, struggling to get dudes involved. Like I said, there's more time, and we'll just go through some things that we've seen success with. In fact, the guy in the back of the room there, Luke, I love that he's here because he brings, I don't know how many guys, sometimes between 10 to 25 guys from his church to one of the men's ministry events, and he could share all about the retreat and just that time together. But I don't want to turn it over to him yet. So big event one times a year, your retreat that the guys can count on. A retreat's a good way. The ones we do Thursday to Sunday, and set up an environment of at least weekly check-ins. We're going to deal with that at the end. The quick thing on that is setting up that environment where I have freedom to come to you and say, how's your family? How are you doing? Tell me about, and if we're at church and we do that, and we need to not go to worship to talk through, man, let's do it, all right? Quarterly opportunities. I've heard of churches doing like elk game feeds and stuff like that, just time for men to get together. Monthly Bible study opportunities or weekly. I would say stay away from Saturdays if you want the younger crowd. Saturdays is a precious day off. Sorry, I'm not driving to church on Saturday morning. I'm a rare dude. I'm one of the youngest guys in a Bible study on Thursday. Thursday morning I go to a men's Bible study at one of the churches in town, and that's pretty good. But the chances of getting men to come to a weekly thing it's difficult unless they have that community there that's telling them to be there. So on my Bible study, there was a guy who was going who I started connecting with. I saw him at church. He hadn't been coming to the retreat or coming to the Bible study. And so I noticed a change in him, went to him because we had that relationship, that weekly check-in relationship, walked up to him and said, hey, is there something going on? Are you do okay? I haven't seen you at Bible study. And what he was able to say was, no, I just haven't been able to go. I'm like, cool, I just noticed a change, thought I'd check it out. The other thing I did was the pastor who leads it, he gave a weird off sermon. And because we had this environment, I was able to talk to him and say, hey, Scott, your sermon was a little bit off. Are you okay? And he just said, yeah, I was just super rushed because they had something else. He just told me this, but it was super off for him. And that was just because of that environment, check-ins and Bible study, just that created that opportunity to have that. And I think that's important. You do need a cool name for your men's ministry? I don't know what it would be. Anybody? No? All right. And you need a t-shirt.
That's why we came to this session.
You need a cool name?
Yeah, I thought you were going to give us something.
I got it.
You got one?
It's not my group. It's called Hebrews. They go out to a craft bar thing. They all invite somebody who's probably not connected to a church. They got a topic they discuss. It's good stuff.
One of the successes we had was Bible and bourbon. So we found a bar that let us sit down and drink some bourbon, but drank the bourbon after the Bible. Saying. But he and that actually pulled in some younger men for about 3 months, and then it kind of fizzled out a little bit because there was something they missed when they did it. Profit. Now, profit's not always about money, right? It's about what are we gaining out of this. But if we don't look at what we're gaining, then we might have a program that we're trying to make work that's really not producing anything. Benefits of getting men in leadership roles, family, church. Like I said in the beginning, when we had men starting to do Sunday school hour and teach Sunday school hour and be involved with children's ministry, it was amazing what happened in the church. And the kids, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it other than it was just awesome. Yeah, it was so cool. Income generated from big event can fund more men's ministry events, quarterly event. So there is something about money there, because I think churches, when you look at church budgets, they get a little crazy. Just so you know, when you do a retreat with shooting and you pay for ammunition, you're going to need a lot more money. All right? And that's fun, actually. And there's other profits for men's ministry that you guys think of. Support. Encouragement for sure. One of the helping your families.
I was going to say that's one of our members. We were in the men's group. Moved to another city, and unfortunately, 2 months later, he fell into temptation and kind of cheated on his wife. And he came to us. I mean, he left. I'm sorry, guys. And then the psychologist, the therapist, told him the men's group was holding you together.
Oh, wow.
To stay away from that. So the men's group has a big profit value.
I think so too.
The more accountable guys get in the groups, the deeper they go.
That's right.
And we have like our high commitment men's groups are discipleship, 2 years. You're going to meet 2 years, you're going to do stuff. And inevitably, about 6 months, guys start coming to me and saying, I got to work on this pornography problem.
Yeah.
I got to work on spending time with my kids.
Yep.
I got to ask forgiveness about this. I got to give this up. That it goes deeper. It's almost like it's two-tiered. You get your big events, the guys that come to a retreat, and so on. And then, hey, do you want to go deeper?
Yep.
That's always that. You're referring to it over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And have an environment where you can confess that.
Yep.
And where guys look at you and say, that's bad, you need to stop, but I'm going to walk with you and getting this done. Yep, that's exactly right. But the environment to say that, someday we'll learn how to do that with our own church workers, to say you're hurting, you screwed up, and we're going to walk with you to heal you, rather than abandon you. But that's another session. All right, retreats. Now, I love retreats, as I should. That's what I do for a living. Who you're trying to reach is always important. It's, again, I come back to that question, who are you trying to reach in a retreat? Retreats are a great way to reach those dudes on the fringe that may never step foot in a church. But at the same time, high activity. All right? I am so much high activity. One of the things when the Family of Christ first started coming to LVR, they had 35 guys. And all they would do is they would eat breakfast, sit in a session all day, eat lunch, sit in a session all day, maybe do like something in the afternoon, and then eat dinner, and then be in a session, right?
Like BPM.
Yeah, but we didn't have large churros, which, by the way, next time one of you guys walk out there, make sure you bring a whole pan for everybody. Bring it up here first. All right. High activity. The reason is high activity because you can promote that to those who you're trying to reach. All right, you promote the activities. And yeah, we're going to have some Jesus talk. And we're going to get serious. And then the speaker. The speaker is very important. If you're a pastor, sorry pastors, but if you're not great at this, give it to somebody else. It needs to have a unique ability to really challenge people. For the sake of the people here, I use kick us in the pants. All right? And offer a realistic challenge. It doesn't have to be 15 challenges. What's the one challenge? What's the 2 challenges? Luke's been the speaker at the fall one in the last 2 years, done a great job. And he has a great approach. And so we love having him do that. Doug and I, who kind of work behind the scenes, love having Luke there. And he's able to speak, and then speak in a way that people hear and understand. So,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Can you give us an example of a realistic challenge?
Yeah, a realistic challenge. So go back to the, let me go back to performance. Nope, you know what? These priorities. So realistic challenge would have to do with one of these priorities, 1 or 2 of them maybe in your retreat. So if you want to reorganize priorities, it's like, let's talk about reorganizing priorities in this session. All right, and the realistic challenge there would be to prioritize your abiding time with God, or a realistic challenge is in God, abiding daily in God's presence. Does that make sense? So kind of picking from this list and then breaking some of these down a little bit, and what does that look like? So intentionality. Well, that's a big word. So what does that mean? Intentionality with what? Intentionality with your time, or some skill building. One of the sessions from a long time ago, the overall theme of the weekend was stand in the gap. How do you walk alongside a brother who's hurting? And if you're hurting, how do you reach out to someone? And just that challenge of walking alongside someone. Did that answer your question? No? Okay. All right, we'll get there.
I'm just stupid, I don't know.
No, you're not stupid. All right, so a realistic challenge could be, what have we had in the past? Usually, we had one where the realistic challenge was simply learn from someone who's older than you, find a mentor. And that was a few years ago too, and that worked. So ask them a question. A realistic challenge could be now with the FOC one this spring. It was men. We're going to build a house down in Mexico. Let's get together, bring our families. We're going to go build a house in Mexico. All right. So it's stuff like that. It could be all over the place. Typically, it's in those wheelhouses. But thank you for that question. Giveaways, drawings. You wouldn't think this is a big deal. So the 2 retreats that we have, the giveaways and drawings are huge. And that actually helps attract dudes. One of them, in the fall when we usually do a vehicle, we find a cheap vehicle and they do a raffle. Well, it's not really, you can't call it a raffle in Colorado. It's a donation to the men's ministry and you happen to get tickets. They do rifles, guns, ammunition, tickets to games, suites, stuff like that. Some of it they pay for from the profits from the previous retreat. Some of it people donated from connections in the congregation. And actually the free things is pretty awesome. And then the nightly activities. And then once a year, lock in the date, same weekend every year. So guys can count on it. And you can already start promoting it in your church. So this is one of our first activity nights. Spear throwing. These guys are not good with them. But that was a good picture. And then here, you can't see the picture too well, but we have, just things to get dudes. This is there's a softball in there. Yeah, and we have 55-gallon drums stacked up, and you got to knock them over. Yeah. It was pretty cool. Here's some more pictures of the men's retreats. We get them on the zip line with airsoft, and they shoot targets. And then they get points for how many targets they shoot.
You have people on the ground shooting the guy on the zip line?
Not yet, but if you... Not yet.
That's the advanced level.
Yeah. You first. Yeah. Of course, hiking, that's one of our hikes, Cedar Mountain. And these are pictures from LVR. Sunrise hike up Cedar Mountain, which is pretty cool. There's the start of our 200-foot rappel that we take the guys on. And what's really cool about that, there's a lot of guys that never rappelled before, and their first rappelling is over a 200-foot cliff. Archery tag, where you shoot each other with bow and arrows. You should have heard about that by now. If you haven't set one up in your gym at your school or church, get the stuff. And if you need to buy your own stuff, look up LARPing on Amazon Prime. Okay, and live action role play. So shoot each other, which is great. Horseback rides, and we also, we have at LVR we have the approved gun range, and we also do target shooting trainings and things like that too with the men. Which has been a big asset to us. We have a former FBI agent, and now he's an FBI trainer who runs the shooting events out there. It's fantastic. We do a 3-gun competition, and I don't have pictures of the gun range because actually I think when I put this slide up, we didn't have the gun range approved, and I hadn't updated it yet because we didn't have BPM last year. Just saying. So high activities. So here's the schedule that we do on our spring and fall retreats. And so you can tell we do a daily devotion and then evening program, and that's the speaker. But we limited it, all right? And then evening activities afterwards, we do cornhole tournament, poker tournament, just to keep things up. And then we also, as a staff, one of our nights will fry up the best chicken wings in Colorado, and things like that. We do up dinner pretty well. But anyway, simple activity-based calendar works really well. Coming in Thursday night and all the way to Sunday. So, all right. Now the thing about men's ministry too is who should be in charge, and this is the one thing. Doug Cargus, who runs the fall retreat, he fits this bill. He is the guy. I'll just go through it real fast. Have you ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point? Mm-hmm. Yes, connector. Remember that term then? Right. Find that person who's a connector. The person, and how there's like a connector test in his book of. You give them this list of names, and they just check off all the people they know with those first names. And if they know, it's like he gives a percentage of how many they know they're a connector. Basically knows a lot of people. Because you got to have a champion for the men's ministry. It just has to happen. Now, the thing that's happening at FOC now is that our champion left the church a few years ago, and the new person is just kind of like, hey, we're having a retreat. And we still get 70 guys coming, but we're not getting that same, like, hey, you coming? You coming on Sunday morning? Doug's in people's faces going, when are you going to sign up? So here's how you define it. Extraordinary, elite group of people so expert in cultivating connections that they are the reason the rest of us are connected to. All right, that's pretty cool, by the way. And then, this is mine, not Malcolm Gladwell. All right. Person has most of their crap together. Men's ministry, as we look at leading men's ministry, and I said this always with student ministry, any ministry we think about is people who are in charge need to be able to walk with integrity. All right, that has to be the first and foremost before picking it. So, person who said that one, yeah, there you go. So Doug, the story is that when he walks in Holy Cross during the month of July and August, everyone avoids him. Because they know he's going to be like, did you sign up for the men's retreat yet? Hey, did you sign up for the men's retreat yet? And he is the biggest promoter of all time. And he sends out email, and I know he probably calls Luke if Luke registers too late too. So he does that, and that's a huge champion. And so that's huge. So if you could think of someone like that who would be interested, that's fantastic. And it's better if it's not us as church workers. Well, of course we're going to promote men's ministry. We want more ministry. We love it because we're getting affirmation from our work. So, sorry. All right. Now, this is the other thing, setting up the environment of weekly or more check-ins. This has come about recently because it's not realistic for dudes maybe to come every week. They're there on Sunday morning, and that's their only day off. They're running their kids around 100 miles an hour. And so thinking about coming in at 7 o'clock on a Thursday is pretty hard. So how do we do this? And I know some of you might have small group ministries or life group ministries, and that is an avenue if the men get connected there. to check in, and there does need to be a conversation sometimes, not all the time, where it's just the men checking in with each other. Growing up, we always went over to people's houses, and for like the first like half hour or hour, the women would be in one place talking, and the men would be in another place talking. And then my dad would be with a bunch of dudes, and my mom would be with a bunch of women. Then they'd come together and play cards and drink a bunch of beer. It was pretty awesome. And I didn't realize growing up how much my dad needed that. But then now I'm growing up, I realize how much I need that. So, but then also my wife needs that also at time. I didn't do this, but I didn't do the swooping in thing. Sorry, because I just threw this up here. So the connection at larger gatherings, the quarterly events, it's okay if they hang out together. They don't have to get to know everybody. 2 or 3 people, 4 maybe. And they will happen naturally, believe it or not, at these events. But this is the big one. Setting up that environment in a guy's life, like you were talking about with your gentleman who left. If you see something, say something. Meaning, I can't spell. I don't proofread these things. All right. Yeah.
We know that.
Well, the underline doesn't happen on PowerPoint. Just saying. All right. If you see something, say something, and men are really easy. If something's wrong with a dude, super easy to tell. There's avoidance behaviors, there's just change in behaviors, there's a change in tone. Guys are super easy to read, but we just have to listen to each other. And if you see something, say something, meaning a change in behavior, a non-typical reaction to situations, man, say something. Like I told you with the pastor, who's really not my pastor, just when I go to and I don't go to Family of Christ, emailing him and saying, man, something was different. Are you okay? And it's actually more appreciative that I said something and he didn't take it the wrong way, because he knows me a little bit. And working with a lot of college students at camp, especially guys, it's really easy to tell when they're off. And so say something. And then you may not be able to fix it, but at least you'll get it out there and we can start talking about it. Ask questions, ask. How's your family, relationship with your wife? Last time I saw you, you said, and I'm just following up with you. That environment is huge. I would say, the purpose, getting guys to be the spiritual leaders again, but getting this environment, creating that culture and environment we can hold each other, not accountable, we can walk with each other. All right? Because accountability means I jump in and say, you should do this, another should, right? And then step out. Walking with says, man, come on, let's go. Let's walk along each other and let's talk about this. And so that is, that's the ultimate thing now that we're trying to create, is that environment. So, any questions for me? That's the end of what I got. But I also want to see what you guys have, where you're at. Any questions, comments, any successes? Yes?
What do you would say is a kind of a critical mass of the amount of guys that have for like a monthly event?
Yeah, critical mass is always fun. I've never reached it on a monthly event. Any size that you think you can handle. So with that being mean is if you have 100 guys show up on a monthly event, there's got to be time for those connections, right? And so it just can't be speaking at them, basically. And they have to have time to sit out, drink a beer with each other or something. Doesn't have to be beer. It could be water, I suppose, and coffee. But the critical thing is what do you think you can handle. But it's really just about giving time to separate out, so they can talk through things. So, and not being upset if people aren't there, if they have to go out and have a good conversation or something, for sure. So, what else? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my men's group meets on Tuesday night.
Yeah,
Tuesday
oh
night
nice.
At 7 o'clock, we sit around for an hour, shoot the bowl.
Mm.
A lot of times we'll cook. We meet the guys pole barn, we'll cook in the Blackstone. There's a lot of different stuff. We'll do that, and then we do Bible study from 8 to 9.
Nice.
It
Works out really well.
From probably 14 to 20 guys there.
Nice. That's awesome.
We do a weekend up in the UP. One of the guys got a deer camp up there in Michigan.
Yeah.
And one of the guys has a deer camp up there, and we have about 25 to 30 guys that go up there for a 3-day weekend, and we shoot speed.
Nice.
Long guns, rifles, handguns, everything.
Awesome.
We
Yeah. But you see the benefits of doing that. You know, the benefits of having those
Oh,
dudes in
yeah,
that
that's
time.
great. I mean, that's something that everybody looks forward to all year.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Camp Omega up in Minnesota runs a pretty good men's retreat as well. They use a gun range down the road. It's really pretty awesome. And Bob LaCroix.
I
Yeah.
was that connector guy,
Yeah?
or the one that gets in your face because
Yeah.
he's just fearless. And it actually ended up being exactly that. People started to avoid me.
Right around the time you're asking, yeah.
I had a 60th birthday party that they threw for me, and that was one of the major themes, was staying away from Kirk during April. It's going to get you.
But
It was frustrating, but it was fun at the same time.
right. Because then it becomes a game. If you turn it into a game, right, you can't hide from me, bro.
It does.
Yeah, I got you.
And you got to make them pay something.
Yeah, well,
They
that's
have to pay something, because if they don't pay anything, they won't come.
right.
I want
Yeah.
to share something.
Yes, sir.
Well, one of the things that worked for us real well was we took a group of men to Mexico to build a house in 3 days, Casas for Cristo that we have here. And everybody, we baptized 5 people.
That's awesome.
And all our people that were there were get to be the godparents of those kids, and so they connect with them. And now they're bound together, and it's like, man, we just built a house, and also a stronger house, built in the rock. It's like, it's beautiful. It's a life-changing experience, transforming.
Yeah, that's I wasn't able to go when our church did that this fall, but from the challenge from our men's retreat, and I heard the same things. It was insane, and then the families got to go too. So yeah, that's awesome. And given that goal of a project and useful skills, it's amazing too. We every now and then we'll do a service project on these retreats, and it's amazing how many guys just want to serve and do something. Some days when we don't, all the years when we don't have anything, which happens, believe it or not, it happens, because you never know what you're going to get. Some days you got to have skilled labor. Some dudes are just not skilled. So we offer up like amazing amount of like service opportunities of, hey, if you guys want to come in early and help us cook breakfast, you know, they'll come in. If you guys want to help us do dishes, and dudes show up. You know, like, who the heck wants to show up and do breakfast? But some of the guys don't sleep either. So, I get that. Anyway. But those service opportunities are huge, and getting the dedication. And if you can involve families with them, then the funny thing is when I come, I'll just say my own, how's this? I'll say it my own way. When I step out of my house and go do something for someone else and my family is there, I am more apt to be calm and enjoy the time with them and actually connect with them more by working alongside with them, rather than being, oh my gosh, we got to get somewhere, we got to clean the house, we got to do all these things, I have to go to work, I got to leave now. All of a sudden, I'm more calm in that environment, and I can actually have those deeper connections. Absolutely. I'll say it that way, because I can't speak for everybody. Yes, sir.
I'm always looking for where the guys are. You know, and if they say, hey, let's do this, then I go, okay, let's figure out a way to do this.
Yeah.
And because they don't have it all planned out, but they're having a Holy Spirit talking to them there a little bit. The other thing is, guys are all about being challenged.
Yep.
If you watch the movie Facing the Giants, you know, and there's the coach crawling along, the guy doing the death crawl, and women watch that and say, oh, that guy's doing that for the coach. You know, I said, no, we're not. Doing it because the coach is saying you can be that guy.
Right.
So if you challenge guys on almost anything, on some leadership that they can do, they'll jump on it.
September 30th, 1991. I was a sophomore in high school. My offensive line coach pulled me out and challenged me that day to be better. And then from that moment on, never looked back. And then after that, I was junior and senior year all-state football. And then I had other sports, super good. But I don't know that if I would have been that had he not challenged me that day. And I won't forget that date either. So it's pretty crazy. And then, and I did go on to play a little bit 1 year Division I football. But And God said, well, I said I didn't want to do that anymore, and God said, I have a plan for you. So that was pretty cool. But you're not going to know the name of the school, University of Evansville. Oh yeah, the Evansville Purple Aces.
Evansville, Indiana.
Purple Aces, baby. That's the only time I wore purple. So.
Office overlooked their.
Did you really?
Yeah, right across the street.
They still had a cinder track when I was there. But anyway, like I said, not a big Division I, but I could say it, Division I. Anyway, but yeah, that challenge for me that day, well, I'll never forget. Absolutely.
Have you seen the problem? There's an overall problem in the Church of Men. I mean, walk into a church and you're going to see 20% men, 30% men, maybe. It's a problem.
Yeah.
There's lots of things being written on it right now. Christianity, in its very description, is not very masculine. And
Yes, it is.
Well,
in its very description,
Warriors, battle, fighting.
but nobody uses those anymore.
That's yeah. You said Christianity.
Nobody uses those
You're
anymore.
talking about what we've overtaken ourselves with on metaphor.
It's all love,
Our first
compassion,
men's
and
retreat was fight the good fight.
Right.
We had a shirt that fight the fight. It's all about fighting. It's all, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, lots of men's
But you're
imagery.
right. You're right. On
yeah, so the question was, not really a question, more of a statement with trend, and that is, looked around and noticed that just the lack of men in the church is basically it. And it could be linked to not keeping it masculine. And that's why I think this connection is going to help. The connection with each other, accountability. Are you there? Why aren't you there? What's going on? I'm not angry that you're not there. I need to know if I need to help you with something. And that's creating that community. So, and I was also challenged by, what if we looked at our worship time on Sunday? Yes, we're so focused, worship-centric as our church body, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it is more than that. It's about coming together on a Sunday as a people of God to receive encouragement, strength, and endurance for the rest of the week. The worship is there, and we want to do that, but it's also that community of believers coming together. So having that connection and getting men there, it will help as you see guys holding each other accountable. As far as the masculinity, fight the good fight battle, it's a little bit overdone right now sorry.
I'm from Oregon.
Then the reason,
Never mind.
but I'm okay with it.
It's different. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because some guys really can rally around that. Our theme this fall was somebody's gonna die. And it was kind of fun. It's kind of fun, and so I had to say to the group of men, it's a metaphorical death, and it led to a good theme for Luke this fall, in terms of just dying to yourself, and we've done, and then we had the Overwatch, the theme of the Overwatch, and I forget what psalm it was, one time where, we're in a sense he changed the word, but not the meaning of Scripture, who God's our Overwatch. If you've been in the military, you know what Overwatch is, right? That's your sniper, right? Who's looking out for you, who's always up on the hill looking for somebody coming to get you, basically like that. And just talking about how God's that Overwatch, and how we also get to be that for each other. And we had Stand in the Gap before.
Our last retreat was Get Her Done.
Yeah, I can't. Okay. Yeah. Let's do this. Those type of things. And the sending off on Sunday on a retreat, what I'm learning is the challenge of building the house actually worked really, really well, because that was concrete, tangible. So the sending off on Sunday, you have to be careful. It does need to be tangible. What can we actually do and get done? What is that challenge? And your challenge might be to double the size of the retreat next year. All right, it might be that, double the size. Who's not coming that needs to be here right now? And that's also one way we've also grown the retreat a little bit too. But that's great. We've had, what was the one a couple years ago? I don't know. Some dude showed up in a suit of armor, but he wouldn't let us hit him with the softballs. And I'm like, it's not that good of a suit of armor then. All right? Just saying. We also built a trebuchet for the men too. And we have one of those. And And then the problem with men's ministry. Hey, Steve, can we set that thing on fire and shoot it? No, can't do that. And then I get accused of being a fun killer. Jeez, I bet we could set it on fire. What if we just had like somebody standing out there with a fire extinguisher, so when it lands, we put it out. So you want someone to stand out there while the flaming ball is going towards them. Who's it? You know? And there's always some dude that'll do it. Usually Jason. So, yeah. So, it's going, me being a little crazy, Doug being a little crazy, who I've referred to a couple times, and just knowing we're going to have a good time. And Luke, not being afraid to hit a topic is really one of the cool formulas about the fall retreat that I get to be a part of. It's a lot of fun. And then creating that culture too that we're able to do on that weekend. Other questions?
What about father-son kind of Bible studies or men's groups? Mm-hmm. They don't have to be just men, you know.
Yeah. So we do a father-son something over the weekend in the summer up at camp, and it's built to be a choose-your-own-adventure. Here's the list of things you can do. You can do a 2-night backpack trip. You can do a 1-night. We'll set you up, tell you where to go. If there's enough guys going, we'll actually send a staff and get you home. And then if we say it quick, and they won't understand how incompetent you are. There within, fishing, things like that they can choose to do. A lot of success on that. We did it the first summer we ran it. We had 10 couples, like we had 10 fathers and sons, and now it's capacity at 50. So a huge success. Our men's retreat that we do in the fall and spring, we do 18 and over because of some of the topics we talk about. We do allow alcohol in those within a reason. In fact, half the giveaways are usually pretty good bottles of scotch, and it's one of the few times we allow those things to happen. So that's a good question. Yeah, Joel.
From you or someone else, what happens when a church has like two competing men's groups? Like we have an LLL group that's been competing since the 1980s.
Oh, the Lutheran Layman League.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even know they're still around.
I know, right?
Holy cow. You're actually going to say the LWML and the LLL had a softball match.
Yeah. So we've got those guys who think that like everybody in the church, every man in the church should be in their group, and then we've got a group that meets once a month at a bar on a Tuesday night, just for fellowship. How do we reconcile? What do we got?
You got.
As a lead pastor in a church that has a lot of people in their 70s, and then we have a lot of younger people, I don't kill anything. I just let it die. I just tell the older guys, or sometimes older women, I just say, you don't get to force those people to do what you want. Mm-hmm. You can do your own ministry team thing, but it's that whole thing of all the women in the church belong to LWML. Mm-hmm. They sure as hell don't. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. You can do that if you love doing that, but you're not recruiting at that point. The whole question is, are they open and trying to bring in new people, or is it just a thing and you're supposed to come in and keep the machinery running for our group?
And that's the danger of a lot of ministries we do, right? Yeah. Where as soon as the culture has changed, but we haven't, we say, wait, you need to change to us.
They become institutional.
Yeah. So on that one's up to you. On that one, I can see both, but I'm learning this word gentle. Still, I'm learning it. I haven't got it yet. But it's that gently walk with both groups, and it's not that the whole men's ministry is LLL, right? Because I just dealt with the last LLL camp that exists in Michigan, and they're switching away. And I was like, wow, that's still a thing. I didn't realize that. Lutheran Layman League. Who knows about that? Does anybody know about that? Yeah, come on, right? There's a few, right? If you did, you are old. And it's really it's not about this. It's about the bigger picture, right? It's the bigger picture, bringing men into faith and keeping them there, right? And if they're both groups are like, yeah, let's do it, man, then that could offer some change agents there too. So absolutely, but it would be it's good to have a conversation with them. If they think all the men need to be part of this, you say, what is this? You know, well, this, you know, and from there you might be able to have some conversations that say, well, if you're open to change, I'm all for it. If you're open to reaching people where they're at, let's go for it. But if you're wanting them to walk in the door and be you, then maybe we just go ahead and let these dudes do something. So that gap has existed for a few years, right? Yeah.
We had three men's ministry.
Nice.
And one of them was, I don't know, 100 years old.
Yeah.
He was always there, and here I was in the area, closing churches and closing these ministries that don't work. So it was hard to approach them without a relational. You know, I had to know their relational ministry. And when I asked them, okay, who started this? Oh, he passed away. He continued that. Oh, he passed away. And then the third, it's like, this is the guy who continued the flame. And then I said, well, okay, what was the purpose? Are you continuing the purpose? Did you feel like growing or not?
Right.
And then themselves say like, you know what, we better join another group. And then the other group become bigger, more intentional. The whole point is for us to grow, not to have the club was becoming more a political club. Because in the church, in our church, it's divided. We got the mask or no mask or the political side.
Yeah, well, and if we can just keep things from turning political, right, in churches. Right, that's exactly right.
It's funny that Barna was saying that a lot of people are choosing their denomination according to the political view.
Right. Yes, I've seen that more now recently. A lot of people are choosing their denomination because of their political views, not necessarily, truth in Scripture. Yeah.
I don't think people understand, or maybe they do. It's just I hadn't seen it. Is the importance of men. Promise Keepers had some really interesting stats. And one of those stats showed that when a man comes to Christ, in 90% of the situations, the entire family comes to Christ. When a woman comes to Christ, it's about 50%. So that alone is why we have to have this, is why we have to do this, why we have to reach out. And guys aren't easy.
No. We found a lot. That's why we found a lot of success with the activities, in the retreats, and I think one of the ones we did. I think when the FOC retreat hit the height at 250 people, the pastor who was there at the time just walked up and said, "Well, we got you here," And it was kind of like, "Ha!" But it wasn't really, and so that moment was pretty awesome. And one of those years we baptized someone down the river also, which was pretty cool. But yeah, men's ministry is important, and it changes our church culture for sure. Any other questions?
Well,
yes, sir.
I could just maybe ask the group, in a small group for men, what are you guys finding that are working? Like right now we're doing Every Man a Warrior, but we're on our second year of it, right? This is our second round, and I'm kind of just looking for other resources. Or do you guys just like get together and pick out scripture and talk about it? Like, what's working? You guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
If it's the lighter, if it's just a short-term group or something, that's fine. But if you're going to go longer term with men, then you got to go deeper. And we use some discipleship materials, and we challenge the guys: are you in for a 2-year stint to learn to disciple other people? And that's our second step, because we're fantastically good at getting church workers to disciple people.
Right.
And then we just stop right there. And the North American church is dying because of that. But not every guy is ready for that step. And the leader has to discern that and then talk individually to those. It's that deeper place.
Yeah.
So that is that like a step-by-step program, or what are you talking about?
We're using stuff from Local Mission, which is a church planting, group. But there's some decent discipleship stuff, but there's a lot of discipleship materials that just tell you how to be a disciple. They don't tell you how to disciple anybody else, and they don't challenge you. It's that step, and I see men, it takes 6 months to a year in a group, and then they'll swing, and they'll start discipling other guys. It's a big move.
And the thing that I've heard is a little bit more concrete for guys, instead of using discipling, is leadership and developing leaders. And that shift has actually helped churches a little more too, if we work to develop leaders and work in leadership. Yeah. And mentor. Yeah, discipleship can get lost in the translation sometimes. We do, the Bible study I go to, there's anywhere between 10, some days, on snowy days, there's actually 30 people there because it's Colorado, it's what we do. And then between 10 and 30 guys, and the pastor right now we're in Matthew, we're finishing up, just do a chapter a day and talk. And all he does is simply go, what hit you as we read through this? That's all he does. And then, but he also hones he doesn't allow us to go down rabbit holes. He does very well keeping it focused on Scripture. And then he'll always have a life application question. And that's why I actually really like this Bible study I go to. One day he just sit there and we did the conversion of the disciples in the beginning of Matthew. And he goes, hey, what are some of your guys' conversion stories? And all of a sudden this dude Mac, who helped start Celebrate Recovery, and he knows the Duck Dynasty guys, which I didn't realize, and helped start Celebrate Recovery at their church, tattooed all over to hell. He just stood up there and he just was like, well, I was in the drugs and all this stuff, and one day there was something. The kids are going to church, and there was a question between him and his daughter, and the daughter said, well, my dad's not going to church anyway. And he stayed home from church, cried his butt off, and never touched a drug again, changed his life around right then and there. And just that story from him was super good, and that led him to start Celebrate Recovery with the Duck Dynasty guys. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. He knows Phil Robinson. All right. We have a celebrity. Oh, that's great. But he's one of those slow Southern talkers, though. He takes forever.
My pastor is that he'll send out, because we meet on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah.
So on Monday he'll send out an email to us that says, this was the passage of the message. I want to read this. And then he'll have a question for us inside of it. So that we're gonna look at this part. And he's really good at the questions. Fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't end up being the group. There's usually one person that ends up being a real challenge to. I've had that happen to me. It's not pleasant, but it's deep. It's deep. He forces you to think.
And that environment too, I just can't stress that enough. That environment where I can go up to another brother after a Bible study and say, I'm struggling, can we go pray? And making sure that's an okay thing. Or, hey, I noticed something different. We need to come over here and talk about it. Let's go grab a coffee real fast. And I can't stress that one enough. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I've used a number of curriculums like Men's Network and whatnot, but the thing that my experience has worked the best, this is 3 different congregations with men's ministry stuff, is using the readings for the upcoming Sunday and having that as a basis for the study.
Yeah.
The guys have loved it. They say they get more out of the sermon on that Sunday. It helps me.
Yeah.
Because then I get ideas for my sermon.
And you're not going to like this to hear this, but when the pastor is attending the men's Bible study, you're going to get more men coming to that one. And so.
And I find it to be a completely different.
Completely different for you? Okay.
Well, just a different dynamic when the pastor's present and when he's not.
Yeah.
It's
depends on the pastor too.
Yeah.
Well.
Yes. We have.
That's true. Is he wearing a collar?
No, I'm not a collar person, but in my business I threw it away to my supervisor here. You can have it. Have you guys heard of Slack?
No.
It's a way to communicate. We have a group, a men's group, and throughout the week everybody can post anything, a prayer request, and in Slack, and keep us connected throughout the whole week. Like right now, I took a picture and sent it to them. Hey man, I'm learning about how people can connect better.
Awesome.
And the other thing is too, Timothy Keller uses the pastor up north. He uses the concept in the Bible study. He gives the notes to the person who's leading, because when you're in the 30-minute, 20-minute Lutheran or 10-minute Lutheran sermon, you don't cover all the angles. But he gives us the notes. And since I'm a pastor too, so I can go deeper and go, hey man, look, what about this? And sometimes if something is wrong, we get off the subject. Hey, this is people are dealing with this right now, anxiety. Let's talk about what it looks like. And what we like to is using and the Stanleys. There's some books, some series in there, and there's some like men, this guy, like no sleeves, and they will talk about common things that men face. And 30-minute, we do it Wednesday afternoon because everybody can give us a lunch time. We can buy the lunch, or they can bring their own lunch. Just watch 30 minutes and 30 minutes of discussion, and people are fueled. I mean, let's do something.
Good. Good. Right on. We'll respect your time. Thanks for being here, and please keep the conversation going. And a challenge to you guys that have men's ministry. This is the only men's ministry offering at this event, and I believe it to be a pretty big deal. So if you can throw some material together for next year, that we can have a men's ministry thing going on every session next year, let's do it, all right? Because I know you guys know, and you guys could do it. And again, I don't have to have all the answers. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. It's just that if men's ministry is important, we should have a session every session.
There was one.
Oh, was it? Oh.
Father and son.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was very good.
Good. We're good. Then we need 2 more. All right?
Challenge.
Challenge. Thank you.